Today, on Gems of the Nature Coast, we are heading to the relaxed island community of Ozello. We'll learn about the early pioneers who made a living from Ozello's abundant fishing opportunities, meet the locals who share things to do, where to eat, popular local events, and how they continue to preserve this charming fishing village amidst the ever-changing world. And finally, we'll take a tour of the pristine waterways with an Ozello native as our guide. It's all coming up on Gems of the Nature Coast. Ozello, or as the locals pronounce it, Ozella, can be found between Crystal River and Homosassa by turning onto Highway 494. This winding two-lane blacktop is called the Ozello Trail, and it twists and turns through St. Martin's Aquatic Preserve, a 23,000-acre wildlife preserve owned by the citizens of Florida and managed by the Department of Natural Resources. As one snakes along the seemingly endless salt marsh flats, a building here and a building there lead to a tight-knit community of about 400 residents living on a chain of islands, inlets, and peninsulas that are part of Florida's Nature Coast. Here, water sports such as fishing and kayaking are popular. A university and a famed golf course are alluded to on the internet, but we couldn't find them. There are some great seafood restaurants with magical views. Ozello is where a whole lot of natural beauty and old Florida can be found in abundance. Ozello has a peaceful, natural vibe. It's the kind of place where you can forget the hustle and bustle of a fast-paced society, kick up your heels, and enjoy the breeze on a hot summer's day.
To live here, you have to be a special type of person to live here because you are 12 miles from town. It's a 12-mile one way, and from the end of the island to the other. And so you have to be able, there's no stores here. You know your neighbor and you borrow stuff if you don't want to go to town. It is island time. It is island time. Some of us are extremely busy, but most of the community is very laid back.
And it's they call it Nature Coast for a reason because there's not much out here. You can see the stars at night. There's no light pollution. Sunsets are absolutely gorgeous at the end of the road, where we're called the Causeway down there. And a lot of times, certain nights in the summertime, there'll be a couple of hundred people gathered just to watch it.
This would be like nowhere else. It's a really nice place to be, to visit, to live. A lot of good fishing, a lot of creeks out here to explore.
Residents have been enjoying Ozello since the late 1800s. The Florida Department of Agriculture reports that Ozello's population in 1800 was 0. By 1900, 49 people lived on the chain of islands that makes up this unincorporated piece of unspoiled Citrus County.
Pioneer families came around the 1880s and they settled in the different islands around here. Actually where we're at is what's called the Western Isles, and we know that several families lived in this area and built homes, tried to grow orange tree crops and fish for a living. So they came from the north and just found the area that they loved and where they could actually, live and fish and feed their family with the fish they caught, and that's what brought them here.
Many of the area's landmarks have been lost to hurricanes and storms. But legends and traditions live on. One of the most unique is the Ozello schoolhouse built in the late 1800s. The school was built on an Indian mound on a small island in the middle of the river. This was agreeable because it was said that a child who could not row a boat by the time he was 6 years old was beyond the hope of education.
Well, the legend goes is that there were families that lived on the various islands, and no one wanted the school built on, they wanted it on their side of the river. And so they agreed that maybe we should have the school in the middle so all the families could just send their kids to this middle central location. And of course, to get there, you had to get there by boat. And originally it was rowing, and the teacher would row a boat, and she would stay out on one of the families, would put the teacher up for the whole week, and then she might go into town for the weekend, but then have to come back. So then eventually they got to the point where they thought, well, we could have a school boat that goes around and picks up the kids instead of a school bus. Once they got to 8th grade, they had to go to the high school in town, and so they again would take their boats to the Homosassa River, and then they get on the train, and they take the train into Crystal River to go to the Crystal River High School.
There is no post office in this little island community, yet post offices were very important to the settlers of that time. The residents of Ozello used a rather unique system to get their mail.
Postmaster, he gave the mail out of his home for a while, and then at one point the Ozello Civic Association had the mail, and then at another point we have a picture of John Brown in a mailboat, and it says U.S. Mail on it, and he would just go around to the homes and deliver the mail.
How did Ozello get its name? Is there a Mr. Ozello? It's not a common surname and appears to be of Italian descent.
Well, back to the post office, when you have a post office, you have to have a place that it's named, and it all goes through the United States Postal Service. So apparently they wanted to name it Osprey. So they sent that name in as Osprey. Well, they were told that there's already an Osprey, Florida. So they had to come up with another name, and they said, the lore is that why don't you suggest a name? So it came to us from Washington, Ozello.
Communities often find that they need to organize and self-govern, especially when they are off the beaten path. This allows the unique flavor of the community and its history to be maintained.
In the 1960s, the community was quite well established, and they wanted to have a place to worship. So the Island Baptist Church was formed, and it's right next door to the Ozello Civic Association. And so that became, both of those areas became a pretty big hub of the community.
One of Ozello's most impressive features is what lies at the end of the trail. Those who take the time will be rewarded by a breathtaking view of Florida's nature coast.
Well, this is called Pirates Point Park, and it is county owned, and it is what was on what we call the Western Isles. Behind you was the Pirates Cove Restaurant and Motel that was built in the 60s. It was a very iconic place that if you talk to anybody, they'd say, well, you gotta go out to Pirates Cove at the end of the island. A great place to party and to have restaurants and good food. And of course, there's a boat launch behind us. And so on any given day, you can come out here and see people launching their kayaks, their motorboats. It's a park that a lot of people can use.
And you'll know you're officially in Ozello when you catch a glimpse of the community's iconic water tower.
Behind me is the Ozello Water Tower. It is iconic because it represents the fact that in the 1960s, the residents had no water. They had to have cisterns or bring water in from the mainland. But a man named Waterman got a group together. They petitioned the state for a grant to fund pumping the water all the way from US 19 out to these islands. This is not the first water tower. but this next one was put in place so that we could have more pressure, so all the residents could have more pressure when they do turn on their water faucets. The tower is used by boaters. When they do lose their way out in the mangroves, they can look up and see what direction they might need to head. So it's an important part of our history, and it also means when you see the water tower, you've arrived.
Coming up next, find out about water sports and nature watching opportunities in Ozello. What do the residents of this tiny island community do for fun? And where do they eat? Stay tuned to Gems of the Nature Coast. Ozello's unique location on the Gulf Coast allows for kayakers to have a breathtaking experience with Mother Nature's majestic wildlife.
Well, and Ozello has actually become a very prominent kayaking place for people to come for both fishing and recreational kayak. We have 2 launch places, one off of John Brown Road and one at the end of Ozello Trail, which we call the boat ramp. And actually, kayaking really did not take off until the last probably 3 years. In the past, we that lived here kayaked, but it was not a big thing like it is now. And it's been written up in a lot of magazines and a lot of fishing magazines, and that's the reason why the people are coming. And these girls in the background, we have a kayak club here, and all of us get together and we kayak together. We have a lot of fun, and we sometimes take wine with us too, so that's a good thing.
Whether for sport or relaxation, exploring Ozello's waterways provides an incredible perspective of the Nature Coast.
When you're in a kayak and you see the dolphins, I mean, it is an experience. It's really great. We love it out here, kayaking.
And after a relaxing day on the water, no trip to Ozello would be complete without sampling the best local cuisine. And there's no place better than the iconic Peck's Old Port Cove.
It's a beautiful destination spot that I enjoy coming to every day. You've got your fresh Gulf shrimp, you've got your scallops, the bay scallops, which are a local favorite. We've got local fish, whitefish. It varies from day to day. We have our famous blue crab. Try the famous blue crab, you can get them steamed or garlic. We have fresh crab right out of the river behind us here. We have a company that goes out and gathers the crab for us almost every day. And that's a lot. We get a lot of people travel for our famous blue crabs.
After 24 hairpin turns and 9.3 miles of "Are we there yet?", Peck's is always a welcome sight.
Some of our first-time visitors out here, their reaction is unbelievable what they found at the end of this road. They get a little nervous. It's quite a little drive out here, so they think they've been duped. But once they come out in the opening and they see, wow, is their reaction.
Once people discover Ozello with its serene, laid-back atmosphere and fresh seafood, they keep coming back for more.
And we get a lot of regular patrons that bring their family from all over the United States when they come in, and they tell us this is the first place they want to come when they get here.
Consistency is key in any restaurant endeavor, and Peck's strives to provide the Ozello welcome time and time again.
We have our recipes, they've been our recipes, we don't change them. We try to keep them the same because people that come up year after year, time after time, they know what they want when they get here, and so we try to make sure that's what they get when they get here. This is how we do our food in Citrus County, Ozello, Homosassa. This is old Florida cooking.
When you love to eat good food and have a good time, it creates a great atmosphere for a party. And the people of Ozello love to show off their community with a festival while raising funds for a good cause. Every February, the Ozello Civic Association puts on its Chili Cook-Off, an event that draws people from all over the area. Cash prizes for the top 3 chilies, crafts, a chili dinner, and the chance to win a kayak are the main draws. This chili cook-off was started about 15 years ago as a small, friendly competition between civic members, and it has grown exponentially through the years. The last 10 years have also featured local artists and craft vendors, which add a lot to the festival.
And the crafts are really good. They're all homemade. They cannot be any resale. Everything has to be made by hand to be in this show. There's no resale, nothing made from China here.
Proceeds from these events support the Ozello Civic Association, and 50 volunteers help make it happen. This fun event takes place at the hub of Ozello, on the grounds of the Civic Association and Community Church.
But this inside here is where we have our chili dinner. Our president has cooked all this chili himself.
It usually ends up about anywhere from 20 to 24 gallons for each year. It's from a secret recipe that the Civic Association has been using now for the last 10 years.
This is where we have our meetings. This is where we have our soup night here. This is where we have coffee and conversation that we invite other people come as guest speakers. So this building is used quite a bit. And this is the hub of the activity here for the Civic Association.
It's a way people experience Ozello because the community comes together to help, to work on it together, and then of course the people in Citrus County and other areas in the state come out. Beautiful Ozello Trail, and it's always the Saturday after Thanksgiving when people have a lot of visitors coming, and this is just a wonderful place to bring their guests from other places.
Coming up, we're heading out through Ozello's myriad of waterways with a born and raised resident to find out what life was like growing up in this coastal community on Florida's Nature Coast. Although most people drive their car or truck to visit or get around, many local residents of Ozello utilize the intricate system of waterways and canals. No one knows their way around better than Ozello native Lloyd DeBusk. Lloyd was born in Ozello in 1938. His sisters attended school in the Old Island Schoolhouse by rowing the family boat there.
This right here is where the old schoolhouse of Ozello Schoolhouse was standing. You see some stops stuck up there where people had kind of marked it off from way back. But the hurricane all took most of it out. It kind of got tore up and knocked off the blocks, and we used it for a skating rink. and all the kids around, even the grown kids around here, had a pair of skates, and we all round and round and round in the old schoolhouse. I never did go to school here. My sisters went to school here for a couple of years. And then the school boat would come by and pick us up. And we went into John Brown Drive and then got on the school bus, and that's when we all went to school from there. Across the canal where you see that dock where the big Australian pines are growing, that's where I grew up from a young kid. I was born on the island down the river here, but that's where we spent most of our younger life, right there where those Australian pines are. And the people, they rode their boat from there back around over on the other, there's another house right around the corner there. And then over here, there was only one house back over on this area, which was the Wells Landing. And all of this other out here had no houses except one down on the left, which is Stephen's house. He's the one that drove the school boat and the school bus. So he went around to where all the places, picked us all up, and then took us to school. Okay, right now we're here at Share Outlet, and it's a lot of places it's a place for people to camp out and stuff like that. It used to be a little cabin there back in my time of commercial fishing, and we'd get in and out of the weather, and then finally somebody tore it down. They built another big one behind the old one, and the old slab is still laying out there from the little one. And then the state come in and made them tear it all down. But people still use it for camping and doing their fish frying and whatever out here on the island. And that's the best eating fish there is, whenever you fry it out on the island. A lot of islands out here had little small cabins built up on them, and people use them for weekenders and go out of the weather and stuff like that. But then the county or the state, whoever comes in and burns them down and takes them out. So they moved all that out, and now it's just all islands out here now. Right here we got Sandy Hook, a little white beach like that sticks out of water on low tide. And during the winter time, the pelicans, like those right there, they come swarming in here and they kind of hang out. But during the summertime, when everybody goes scalloping, then you got all the younger people plus us old guys. We come hang out here too and sit our chairs out here on the beach and just have a good party.
The buildings have changed quite a bit over the years, but the islands that make up this community endure, and those who choose to reside in Ozello know how to get around and enjoy this untapped part of the Nature Coast. By working together, Ozello's islanders have chosen to preserve the way of life that has all but faded away in many parts of Florida.
There are not very many places in Florida like this. You don't have all the growth. If you know, a lot of the places used to have these beautiful places like this, and now it's all condos. We don't have that here.
It's a small Florida community, the old Florida community, and they try to preserve that out here to keep it serene, simple, but yet an exciting place to come visit.
And that's why people love to come here. They love to kayak here, they love to live here, because it is still the same as it was. And we love that. And we will work very hard and fight very hard to preserve it.
And so far, I think we've preserved it pretty well.
This waterway community values the slower pace and neighborly traits of a time gone by. And those who have the right stuff can call it home.
Well, it reminds me so much of where I grew up that I really like it. It's a close-knit community. It's an island. Whenever there's a problem out here, everybody pulls together and helps each other out. It's a very, very tight place. There's no strangers out here.
When you live in Ozello, it's not just living, it's experiencing.
It's very friendly, very family. That's the way you feel. You feel like you're at home when you come down here and get to know everybody.
Of course, you experience going out in nature with all the fishing and boating activities.
But I think it's the people and, of course, the environment. You cannot live in a more beautiful place. And since I'm a native Floridian, this is paradise to me.
It's just a really wonderful place that I think Citrus County should be proud that it's a part of their heritage.
Ozello truly is a gem of the Nature Coast.
I love this place.